Hey, all, this is Ed,
And this is Kara.
and this is your day's dumpster fire. Okay, this is weird.
What?
I'm looking at the recording bars, and for some odd reason, my little line that shows like all the sound waves and everything is like way behind yours.
That is weird.
I don't know what that means. Does this
Should
mean
we
that what the heck?
should we pause it before we record for an hour and a half? Let's pause it and see if it's working correctly and it's just the visual.
I think it is working correctly.
I mean, it's right on mine. Like on mine it's accurate, but
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just oh boy, yeah, this makes me nervous.
let's pause it and then like save it and then see if it's okay.
Okay.
Cuz I'd rather do that instead of record this whole thing and have to redo it.
Well, no, it just means that I shift it. Oh wait, now it's lined up.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm looking at I think what it is because the way that we record, it saves it on our computer on top of like doing this VoIP thing that we have going on.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe it was showing yours that was recording on your computer faster than what mine was.
Oh, okay.
Because now that like the little lines hit the edge, it's all lining up now.
Got it. Should we keep this for a trash can fire?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know if a trash can fire really merits for this because this is kind of like a bonus episode.
Yeah.
So,
ep.
yeah. I mean, I don't know what I'm gonna number this. Maybe I'll just put it in sequence, but yeah, we're kind of recording this in between our King Tut fire episode. And then we agreed after we had recorded that we were going to do a follow-up recording on, the actual discovery, King Tut's tomb, and how they destroyed so much stuff. And then I was going to look into the weird stuff that white Victorian British people did with ground up mummified remains and grave robbers. And like, it's amazing that we even have the discoveries that we have today, given the past couple hundred years of mummies being found and ground up and artifacts being stolen and tombs being broken into and riches being it's an industry. It is an actual industry that's out there where it's all about mummies and buying Egyptian artifacts and stuff like that. So we were going to record that, but what we wanted to do is that there's a movie coming out. Anybody who knows me, I am a huge history nut and an absolute science nerd. And I've already done 2 episodes on radiation, where humans try to control radioactive substances and how it kind of blows up in their face. In this case, it's going to be literal.
Boom.
Yeah, I'm a huge Robert J. Oppenheimer fan, and Christopher Nolan's got a movie coming out that is going to I'm assuming based off the previews of it, it's really going to focus on like some of his biographical stuff, like his first girlfriend / love, going into marriage and then cheating on his wife. And but ultimately it's going to culminate with him founding the Manhattan Project and running this thing in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and which ultimately created a nuclear bomb that, well, he created a couple of them that ultimately ended World War II. Yeah, it's going to be
has tickets to see the movie.
Yeah, and we're gonna, I mean, I'm gonna kind of just perhaps maybe gloss over the biography of Oppenheimer, because really I could go on for like an hour and a half just going over his life, because he didn't live very long, but this guy was intense. So I'm gonna just kind of gloss over some basics so that hopefully Christopher Nolan can visually fill in the gaps in the movie. But I really want to get into the Manhattan Project, and I really want to get into some of the science that has to go into making these weapons, including one object that was supposed to be the third nuclear bomb that was going to drop on Tokyo eventually. So, as a lot of you know, the first bomb was dropped in Hiroshima, and then 3 days later, the second bomb that was Fat Man. The first one was Little Boy. The second bomb was Fat Man, dropped in Nagasaki 3 days later, and then after that, Japan surrendered. If Japan did not surrender, then they were going to use the the third bomb was going to be dropped on Tokyo, and that yeah, and eventually after Nagasaki they did surrender. What I what I'm not going to get into, what I don't want to get into is from the very beginning of the Manhattan Project, the decision to use this nuclear bomb once it was figured out and working, the decision would only fall on the United States president. So only the president could make the decision to drop that bomb. And there is a lot of discussion in terms of, was it ethical?
Yeah, there's a lot of political talk, a lot of ethical morality talks around the subject, and honestly, we just kind of want to avoid that
Yeah, it's.
just a little bit.
I mean, there's some things I kind of want to point out, was like, why Hiroshima, why Nagasaki,
Okay.
and the strategy behind it was that, and this is what's crazy, is by the time this war had turned and it now resulted in Allied forces bombing Japan on a regular basis. In Germany, they used percussive bombs, bombs that would send out a shock wave that would break apart brick or stone buildings and collapse. With Japan, at that time, a lot of the buildings they weren't built like that. They were mostly made out of like bamboo and paper and whatnot. So they opted to go with fire bombs. And they chose Hiroshima and Nagasaki because they were realistically the two remaining cities other than Tokyo that were still standing. Like all the other major cities had been completely leveled, and there was a group or a committee set up while the Manhattan Project was in effect. There was a group of people that listed out like, okay, 15 cities of where we want to drop this bomb. And by the time the committee, like every day they would meet, they would have to like cross off more names of cities because, like, well, that got leveled yesterday and well, that got leveled this morning. And so, yeah, like there wasn't much left. And that's kind of a major reason why Hiroshima and Nagasaki were selected.
Huh.
And so when the bomb on Hiroshima dropped, the emperor, keep in mind, the emperor never, ever publicly spoke to, like, if he was going to address everybody, he did a recording of it. He made a record of it, and then they would play that over the radio. So it turns out, I remember seeing a documentary on this when I was like a teenager. After Hiroshima got destroyed with the little boy bomb, the emperor did actually make a recording surrendering.
Oh wow.
He handed it off to a young colonel in the palace, and this colonel thought that we could still win the war. Like he was still very much in this. He thought that Japan could rally, and if you and anybody who ever studies Japanese history, especially during World War II, the Japanese military was just like any other military, but just a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They were they held on to a very, very strict code. They did not easily surrender. They fought ferociously down to the last man, kind of a thing. And yeah, and that's where a lot of the discussion came up of like, well, do we really want to invade Japan? If we invade this island, it's going to just cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives.
Yeah.
Given the tenacity of the Japanese soldier. And so yeah, basically this colonel was like the epitome of that, and he hid the record. And he hid the record for 2 more days, and then on the 3rd day, Nagasaki was obliterated.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when that colonel was like, okay, we realistically can't.
Yeah.
We can't win this. This is just futile. And so then he played it, and then that's where the surrender takes place. So yeah, it's interesting to kind of look at what happened and all that. Now, whether it was justified, whether it was merited, I don't know. It's a very, very tough question to ask, and I think it's an even tougher one to answer. And I think if we were to really, really address the matter of the ethics behind it, only thing we could do is just express opinion.
Yep. I agree.
Which I don't want to do.
Right.
So
we'll keep that to ourselves.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject. A lot like Native American history and all that. It's just like we will.
It's just like
talk about the facts, but
yeah. To me, it's one of those things where if we're going to hit that, then we're going to hit that with a person who knows what they're talking about. So until then, we'll just we'll put it on the back burner. If we can find a professor in the matter or a person with a degree and a skill set that we don't have, but for now, we'll just stick with the facts that we know.
Yeah.
And we'll let you make your own opinion on the subject if you would like.
Yeah. Yep, that's perfectly fine. So yeah, let's dive into this. Let's kind of go over it's actually Julius Robert Oppenheimer, but I don't think anybody wants to go by Julius. So yeah, he went by Robert J. Oppenheimer, and I'm just going to refer to him as Robert through this entire thing because I don't think there was any other scientist on this project named Robert that I could find. There's a lot of German names, a lot of Jewish names, a lot of European names. No Roberts that I know of. So I'm just, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to go with Robert.
All right.
So yeah, he was born April 22nd, 1904 to Jewish American parents. And I want to kind of briefly mention his parents a little bit because I feel like Robert was this incredible genius. He had this incredible mind. Like, you know how you have people that are like, oh, I'm really, really good at math, but I'm terrible at English.
Yeah.
And then you got people that are like, I can write a 500-page essay overnight, but don't ask me to find, the X values of a quadratic formula. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Robert was both. He could do both. He was the kind of guy that loved art, loved literature. He studied poetry constantly. He was real big into religious studies and all that. He gets that from his mother, Ella Friedman, who was a painter. She was an artist. Okay. Julius Seligman Oppenheimer, his dad, was a textile importer executive. And so, yeah, he really clung to his mom for learning the arts and all that, which he incorporated into his own lifestyle. But then he looked to his father and in terms of the analytical, the mathematical, predictable, the consistency of that. Mm-hmm. And he didn't just choose one or the other. He chose both.
Okay. Yeah.
And so Robert's father, Julius, he was an immigrant and he came over from Prussia in 1888. He came over from Prussia and with no money, no college degree, nothing, no real skill sets. And he got a job at a textile factory or importing factory. And within 10 years was promoted to the executive, making solid money. Cool.
Nice.
So yeah, Robert had a pretty good life. He excelled in school, obviously. He basically knocked out the 3rd and 4th grade in 1 year. He skipped half of the 8th grade. So, like, yeah, this guy was, I think he graduated when he was like 16, 17 years old.
Okay.
And then, yeah, he studied everything. He studied English, and he was a big fan of French literature.
All right.
The funny thing is that he taught himself how to read and write Sanskrit, German, Hindi, and Latin. And then he taught himself Dutch in 6 weeks when he had to go out and give a lecture in the Netherlands.
Sweet.
Like, okay.
I wish I could do that.
Yeah, I could barely remember English, let alone any of the French that I took in high school. It's like, so yeah, needless to say, 1921 went to Harvard, but he was delayed because he had some colitis. Guess the guy couldn't poop right, so he went to New Mexico to recuperate, and from there he fell in love with the Southwest. He like, if it wasn't the sciences and all the educational stuff, that was like his number one love, and then the Southwest was his second.
Okay.
And it's interesting because where's Los Alamos? New Mexico.
Yeah.
So yeah, he studied, he majored in chemistry, but also took classes in history, literature, philosophy, and mathematics to make up for lost time because he was out for quite a bit of time. He would take 6 classes each semester so that he could graduate on time. So yeah, in his senior year, he was offered a chance to switch to physics instead of chemistry, and he didn't need to take any of the prerequisites. Like, normally you would have to, like, when you switch degrees like that, even in the sciences, you kind of have to take some of the prerequisites and all that stuff. No, he didn't have to. He already took them. Yeah, he already knew what to do because he would work through the summer.
Good for him.
So yeah, this guy is like just a brain.
He's a workaholic.
And a chain smoker. And the guy had severe depression.
Right.
Which came out in Cambridge.
Yeah. He was like a guy who basically, from what it sounds like, drowned himself in his work to numb whatever pain he was feeling. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, that's actually a more of an adult ADHD thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could sit down and work 20 hours straight on a problem. Like when he was in Cambridge, this really came out. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't sleep. He would just work. So yeah, maybe that was a part of how he coped with the depression. But yeah, it kind of, it really did take a toll on his friendships and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
And I think that's actually the reason why I think he studied a lot of religion.
Okay.
I think, like, to work through those demons that come up with extreme depression, I think he tried to find solace in all his religious and poetry studies and whatnot.
Gotcha.
So
makes sense.
There was an incident where he kind of got into a conflict with a tutor who was only just like a year or two older than him. Yeah, it turned into this wild feud where he essentially took an apple and loaded it with all sorts of noxious chemicals and hid it in his tutor's desk.
Oh my god.
So yeah, I don't know if it would have killed him or not, but it seems like he was gonna try.
Jeez.
So yeah, he he obviously got busted for that. I guess thankfully his dad had enough money to pay off the local police department to just kind of like white people this thing out.
Yeah.
Just, you've seen Suicide Squad, right?
Been a bit, but yeah.
Where Will Smith's character is like, yeah, and if my daughter can't hack it, then I just need you guys to just white people it. Let's do whatever you guys do, just take care of it. And like, oh yeah, no, we can do that.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
So yeah, somehow that got washed under or swept under the rug. One of his best friends, Francis Ferguson, noticed that like Robert was gaunt. He only weighed like 120 pounds. And yeah, working extensively and all that kind of stuff. And his friend, Francis Ferguson, was like, hey, yeah, no, like, I'm getting married here. Cool. Right? Like, he's just trying to take his mind or try to take Robert's mind off of the work. Well, that didn't sit well with Robert. That was a trigger for him. Maybe because he had a thing for Ferguson's girlfriend. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, it literally resulted in him trying. It resulted in Robert trying to choke out his best friend, like he attacked him. And but Ferguson was like, "You're a frail little human being," and just kind of threw him off, and like, "You need to go someplace else."
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, then ultimately he ended up in the University of Göttingen in Germany. And for this, so yeah, he got his master's degree, and then now he's going for his PhD. And there he met some pretty, like, he was working with a lot of people that would ultimately be recruited into the Nobel Prize. Well, a lot of them did win Nobel Prizes, but they would be recruited into the Manhattan Project. So there he met Werner Heisenberg, Pascal Jordan, Wolfgang Pauli, Paul Dirac, Enrico Fermi. We will see him again, and Edward Teller, plus a whole bunch of other people.
Okay.
And yeah, it got to the point where when he got his PhD in theoretical physics, his professors were like, "Thank God he's gone," because he was getting to the point where he was questioning me.
Yeah.
So I think they were just trying to get him out because this guy was just picking up like just so much, and he understood it so well, both the theoretical stuff and the mathematical stuff. So yeah, then long story short, after that, I mentioned it before, he after getting a job at Caltech, and he was traded between universities, like, "Hey, can we borrow Oppenheimer for 6 weeks? Can we borrow him for this? Can we use him for that?" So he was bouncing all over the place, and he was asked to deliver a lecture in the University of Leiden. And this is where, like, on the flight over, actually, I think he took a ship over. He took a ship over, and then in 6 weeks, he taught himself Dutch.
Okay.
His lecture was so well received that they gave him the name or the nickname of Oppie.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, so because of this whirlwind professional tour, he made a lot of money, and he came down with a case of tuberculosis because he was a chain smoker,
All
and
right.
so he had to spend time with his brother in New Mexico at a ranch that he eventually bought. He liked the ranch so much he called it, what was it, Perro Caliente, or literally hot dog, because when he got word that he was able to buy the ranch, he shouted hot dog, and that's what he named it.
Hot dog. Solid.
Yeah, I mean, obviously his students thought he was really, really awesome. They thought he was charismatic. His nonchalance towards authority, or certain matters, that to like the undergrads were like, "Man, this guy's cool. Like, he's got it figured out." Meanwhile, his peers that were at his level or older or whatever, they're like, "Oh God, it's Oppenheimer." Like, this guy is,
oh no.
yeah, like, eye rolling left and right. And they didn't really take, well, I mean, they took him seriously because he could back up everything that he could claim, but it's just like, God, this guy's so overbearing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, and we all know somebody like that.
Sure.
We've all met somebody like that. I've had people treat me like that, but I can't back up anything. I think the eye rolls are probably legitimate, but I'm used to it.
You're fine. Don't degrade yourself then.
So I kind of run through some of his science stuff, because this is literally what Oppenheimer and the science scene.
Yeah.
I took astronomy classes in college and stuff like that, and a lot of there's a lot of stuff, like, especially when we're dealing with like really exotic stars, black holes, quantum theory, all that kind of stuff. You hear Oppenheimer come up multiple times. And I remember asking my professor, like, "Is this the same guy? Is this the same guy that on the Manhattan Project?" And I remember my professor telling me, she's like, "Yeah, he's more known for his scientific work rather than just his Manhattan experience."
Right.
Yeah, like he's more well known. Like, in the science scene, we utilize his equations and his theories a lot more than what we give credit for in the Manhattan Project. So, and I thought that was kind of interesting. So, yeah, he did a lot of work in general relativity, nuclear physics, spectroscopy, quantum field theory, quantum electrodynamics, formal mathematics of relativistic quantum mechanics. I have no idea what that means, but I'm pretty sure he does. he predicted the existence of neutron and meson stars.
Okay.
So those are stars that are like on the verge of turning into a black hole.
Got
it. They're like on the last legs of their life, kind of a thing. Research into continuous spectroscopy concerning quantum theory of molecular band spectra via calculating transition probabilities of the photoelectric effect for hydrogen and X-rays of the sun, but not helium.
But I like that last part, but not helium.
All stars, like first-gen stars, are made out of exactly 75% hydrogen and 25% helium.
Okay.
When they go supernova or whatever and they explode, they have all these other elements that come out. And those are the elements that then make up solar systems. And then the stars that form from, supernova remnants, they have hydrogen and helium and calcium and potassium, and they have all sorts of stuff in there. And if you were to kind of take a prism, point it at the sun, and you see that rainbow effect, you will see, if you look very, very carefully, you'll see like these really weird, tiny little black lines. And that's absorption, meaning like calcium will absorb this band of light, and helium will absorb this band, and potassium will absorb that band, and so on and so on. So yeah, he basically, at this time, scientists didn't know what stars were actually made out of. And what was funny is that he concluded that the sun and most stars were mostly hydrogen. And there was no way to really test that till later on. And then, later on, once the spectroscopy technology increased, they were able to prove, like, oh yeah, no, he's right. The sun is mostly hydrogen.
Okay.
So he worked on the paper that would later predict the positron, created artificial radioactivity using deuterons. The process he came up with is still in use today. In the 1930s, he kind of switched more over to astrophysics. So he co-wrote on the stability of stellar neutron cores. Again, he's going into black hole territory that later Stephen Hawking would expand upon. Explored properties of white dwarfs. Those are the dead stars of like our sun. Like our sun will never turn into a black hole, but it will turn into a white dwarf because it's just not massive enough.
Mm-hmm.
Worked with the former student of his George Volkoff on massive neutron cores. 1939, worked with another former student, Hartland Snyder, to produce the paper on the continued gravitational contraction, which laid the foundation for what would become black holes.
Cool.
He did all of this in the 30s before he even got involved with the Manhattan Project.
So if anybody out there likes black holes, this is your guy.
If you want to know the history of how we mathematically concluded that there were black holes, this is your guy. And if you want a history of really complicated sounding scientific titles to papers, this is your guy.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So yeah, on top of that, like he studied a lot of religious philosophies, especially Hinduism. He taught himself how to read how do you pronounce it, the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads in original Sanskrit. Yeah, he literally just taught himself how to read that. So he literally had books that were written in that language, and he could read it thoroughly and actually understand it. I can't even read it in English and understand it. So yeah, he worked a lot with the humanities, the philosophies, like I said, religion. He was also kind of dabbling in political theory, including communism. So he donated time and money to communist organizations. Bad idea. It sounded interesting at the time, but after World War II, in another episode, we will go into how that would come back and bite him in the butt. Mm-hmm. He donated money to, he attended numerous conventions and seminars on communism. Bad idea. He had many friends and family members who were involved with communism, like his brother and his wife. His first real girlfriend, her name Jean Tatlock. Mm-hmm. His landlady, Mary Ellen Washburn, and multiple other former students. So yeah, he wore many different hats, and there was a lot of people in the 30s and the early 40s that were really, really interested in this new communism thing, not realizing that it would be weaponized in the 50s, get a whole lot of people in trouble with the federal government, like McCarthyism and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
that's a whole nother episode.
It is. we'll get there eventually, I'm sure, but
yeah, we'll just not on this episode.
Yeah, we'll just casually glide over that.
Okay, let's get into the Manhattan Project.
All right.
So, something that kind of blew my mind is on October 9th, 1941, 2 months before the United States entered World War II, Franklin D. Roosevelt approved the crash program to develop the atomic bomb. Keep in mind, leading all the way up, like through 1940 and 1941, Roosevelt was adamant, like, we are not going to get involved with this war in Europe, because keep in mind, it's already been going on for like 4 or 5 years in Europe. Like, we're going to stay out of this. We're not going to get involved with it. Well, if he's not going to get involved with it, then why did he approve to make the mother of all bombs before America got involved?
I mean, it's fair. Fair question.
So, like, and it really kind of begs the question, and I don't want to go down the whole conspiracy theory thing, but, you know, the more I study this, the more I'm thinking, like, I don't know. I think when it comes to Pearl Harbor, and that's another episode in its own right, I feel like there were some people higher up that were fully expecting this to happen.
I will save my counter argument for when we do that episode. Our dear listeners, we had this whole entire discussion yesterday while I was watching 5 and 6 year olds at summer camp. and we will find out.
Like this long text chain going on because because you're looking at it in terms of, you know, what was it, like we were giving aid to Britain, and I was looking at it in terms of the funding and all that kind of stuff.
I was looking at it from the lens of, we were already giving aid to Britain, and we were already doing all of this scientific technology, so naturally, like, the human mind is automatically going to go to, well, we could use this technology that we're already working on. Anyway, I'm sorry. Yeah. We're going down the hole. Let's not go down the hole. We'll save it.
Yeah.
But there's the nutshell.
Yeah, it was a discussion. I'm looking forward to that, but either way, like, I think you and I could both agree on that there's a lot more going on.
Yeah,
leading up to Pearl Harbor being attacked.
Yes, I don't think it was something that was just surprise, MFers, boom. I don't think it was like that.
Yeah, I think the people that were in Pearl Harbor, because I've actually talked to a lot of people. I'm sure that were there.
Those folks are.
Yeah, they were absolutely baffled by what is going on here. But then if you look at the White House, except for the vice president, because the vice president of the United States was actually having a meeting with the secretaries of state from Japan when, like, literally that morning, Pearl Harbor was being attacked, and he was having a meeting at the same time. Those two secretaries from Japan had no idea what was going on. And then the vice president's secretary came in, whispered into his ear, "Hey, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor." And I guess the legend has that the vice president stood up, got pissed, grabbed the two secretaries by the collar, and threw them out of the White House. I feel like I'm inclined to believe that, because that's a very American thing to do.
It sure is.
And meanwhile, those two Japanese secretaries, like, what is going on? So, yeah, the one thing I will say is that I think it was 2 days before the attack, without any other explanation, the 4 American aircraft carriers, all 4 of them that America had, were told to leave without their convoys.
Okay.
An aircraft carrier is surrounded by battleships and destroyers and rings, and then outside of that, they have submarines that go out even further. And, like, the aircraft carrier is the thing that decided the war in the Pacific, and it was the absolute necessity to maintain your aircraft carriers. They were the ones that could win the war, but they were really defenseless. It was interesting how, hey, tell your convoys, which consisted of a lot of ships from, like, World War I, they were very antiquated, like the USS Arizona, the Utah, the Nevada. They were actually, for the most part, considered antiquated battleships. They were told to stay for some odd reason, but then the 4 aircraft carriers were told to get the heck out of here.
Okay.
Head out as far away as possible, which, I don't know, that's just very, very strange orders. But it because of that, though, the Americans kind of did a counterattack. But anyways, that's that. Okay, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But
there are so many rabbit holes.
There's holes within holes. That sounds weird.
It sounds a little weird. Holeception. Anyway, let's move on.
And we just got done talking about black holes.
Oh, yeah.
And did you know there's such thing as a white hole?
Holy hole.
Yeah, gravity is an equal opportunist. You can have black holes and white holes.
We love gravity.
And it's true. Like, if you're a white man or a black man, you fall out of a plane without a parachute, you're going to hit the ground the same, whether your skin color. So
that's one way to look at it. I like it.
Yeah, you racists out there, just think of it that way.
That's right. We're all the same on the inside. Anyway.
So yeah, okay. So by this time, Robert was he was involved with the National Defense Research Committee, and he kind of gave a lecture on, I think the lecture was on energy values based off of relativity, of like, hey, an atom contains a lot of energy. This could prove useful somehow. And keep in mind, Robert had been meeting with Albert Einstein before, and Einstein wanted nothing to do with weaponizing E equals mc squared.
Okay.
He wanted to distance himself from this whole thing as far as possible, and I can't say I blame him. So yeah, the National Defense Research Committee chairman, James B. Conant, who participated in Robert's lectures, he kind of thought like, this guy's got something. He kind of, there's something about this guy that we could probably use. And so, yeah, here I have a whole segment on how to make a nuclear bomb. I'm going to skip that for now. I'm going to kind of just dive into the Manhattan Project here. And it's kind of strange, is like, for the most part, most of America kind of knows what happened. Not necessarily the fine details of inside the Manhattan Project, but we know what came of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about it at the beginning of the episode. There's a guy here, Leslie Groves. Leslie Groves, I think he's played by Matt Damon's character.
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Because, if you see the preview, like, he's got the mustache, and he just sounds like an absolute idiot. And a lot of people did think that he was an idiot, but once Oppenheimer started to kind of get the core group of scientists together, a lot of them were like, yeah, no, you picked the right guy. So General Leslie Groves, I can't wait to see how Matt Damon plays him. I mean, Matt Damon's a stud. He can
do whatever.
I mean, I think he almost did a better Loki than Loki did in Thor. Or they're doing those ultra dramatic plays and of like how Loki died or whatever. And
I think his performance in Interstellar is a good enough Loki for me.
The Ocean's movies.
That's true.
Ocean's 11, 12, 13.
Fair. I haven't watched those movies in years.
Yeah. Either way.
Anyway, he's great.
The guy could play anything. He's like a Tom Hanks. So yeah, this is where it gets a little weird. So Colonel Kenneth D. Nichols, district engineer of the Manhattan Engineer District, wrote of Groves. So this goes into public record. Groves would have seen this. First, General Groves is the biggest SOB I have ever worked for. Mm-hmm. He is the most demanding. He is the most critical. He is always a driver, never a praiser. He's abrasive, sarcastic. He disregards all normal organizational channels. He's extremely intelligent. He has the guts to make timely, difficult decisions. He is the most egotistical man I know. He knows he is right, and so sticks by his every decision. He abounds with energy and expects everyone to work as hard or even harder than he does. But if I had to do my part of the atomic bomb project over again and had the privilege of picking my boss, I would pick General Groves. Some other people said to some, Groves made the only smart decision from a guy, smart decision as in choosing Robert J. Oppenheimer to lead the Manhattan Project. Groves made the only smart decision from a guy who is incapable of making any smart decisions.
Okay. There's a lot of mixed reviews here.
I love how like these guys are all colleagues. They all know each other, and they just roast each other publicly all the time. It's hilarious. So yeah, Oppenheimer was in, and he was assigned to lead up this part of the project of actually like engineering how this bomb was going to work, as well as how to build it. And it was really funny too is that, where was it? Okay, yeah, so Oppenheimer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love this part. So this was originally going to be a military funded, military run, military organized operation.
Okay.
So Robert Oppenheimer was like, cool, like given I have a PhD and all that stuff, I'm going to be sworn in as a lieutenant colonel, like just right off the bat. So he contacted the army. He ordered a fancy lieutenant colonel's uniform and all that stuff. And a lot of his fellow scientists that he recruited for this, he recruited them, and they're thinking like, really, do we really have to be part of the military? Like, is this a necessity? And Oppenheimer's like, oh yeah, no, we got to do it. We're going to be officers. It's going to be awesome. But the military is like, okay, if you are going to be in the army as a sworn officer, then you need to complete a very, very basic like physical test assessment. Like you've got to be able to get through even the most minimal basic training possible.
Oh no.
You're talking about a bunch of nerds in their 40s, 50s, 60s. They were all chain smokers. These guys don't even run for a donut rolling down the hill. Like,
yeah,
it was a disaster. And I hope there was some sort of cutscene in the movie where you show like these old scientists like just trying to run up a flight of stairs.
I want to find footage.
Like, they're like, yeah, most of them don't even give a crap. Like, I could care less if I'm an officer. I have multiple PhDs and I'm a world-round theoretical physicist. Like, I've already made my name. I don't need stars pinned to my collar. Like, I don't care.
How old was Albert Einstein at this point?
Well, Einstein had nothing to do with the Manhattan Project.
I know. But it was just the first thing that came into my head. And it was funny.
Einstein had been in his 70s.
Okay, and I know he had nothing to do with the Manhattan Project. I know, but it was just a funny image in my head, and I really needed it.
I was thinking of that episode. I don't know if you watched Big Bang Theory.
It's been a long time, but
remember the episode where Sheldon and Kripke were fighting over that office?
No.
Sorry. Okay, there was an episode where this theoretical physicist retired because he showed up to a party completely naked because he had lost his mind.
Awesome.
Sheldon's like, cool, I've got an opportunity to get my own office. But then Kripke took it, which was kind of like Sheldon's main nemesis. They had to compete by accomplishing a certain degree of test to see who was the best fit for it. And I guess it was one-on-one basketball.
Oh, boy.
And it was hilarious. Like, they couldn't run. They couldn't throw the ball. They couldn't, like one of them just dropped the ball so hard, threw the ball so hard on the ground, it got stuck in the rafters.
Nice.
Yeah, for those of you who've seen that episode, you know what I'm talking about. That's what happened here. And Oppenheimer, who has tuberculosis, who is a chain smoker, they're like, sorry, dude, you're not cut out for this.
I'm kind of pity the guy because it sounds like he really wanted it.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, he was he thought this was going to be awesome. But no, you can't just get into the military just by being smart. You have to, you have to.
You have to actually have some physical abilities.
Some physical abilities.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is the reason why I will never be in the military. I don't think you're military material either.
No. In fact, they wouldn't let me in at all because I have asthma.
Actually, they can work around that now.
Really?
Yeah, depending on how severe the asthma is, they can work around that.
Interesting. The more you know.
As opposed to like World War I, where my grandmother's father he got kicked out of World War I, even though he was perfectly capable. He had flat feet, so they couldn't make boots for him. So they're like, sorry.
Wow.
And so yeah, he got kicked out. the recruitment, and then after the war was over, and he's like, "I'm so thankful for my flat feet."
Yeah, I bet.
So yeah, I thought that was just kind of a funny part.
It is funny.
These world leading astrophysicists, quantum physicists, theoretical physicists. Yeah, it was hilarious. They're like, okay, we need to change this up. So it will be a military funded organization, and it will be a civilian operated function of the military. So they were basically brought on as contractors.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, which is what they just should have let off with. So, so yeah, they Robert and Groves, they were trying to find a good location, and now I'm thinking of like House Hunters on HGTV. Like Robert and Groves are trying to find a good location in the middle of nowheres where they can settle down and build a healthy, booming nuclear bomb facility.
Robert sits and does math all day. The other guy, we don't really know what he does. They both make $5 million a year. Their budget is 10.
Exactly. And then it'll cut to like, and for some odd reason, Robert found this plateau where there was a dysfunctional boys' ranch on top of this mesa. Robert thought that would be the best way to go. So they kicked the boys out, they kicked the teachers out, and they took over this small little. It was a collection of small buildings, like administrative buildings and classrooms and whatnot.
Okay.
And that was Los Alamos. It was actually originally Los Alamos Ranch School, and then they changed it to Los Alamos Laboratory. And fun fact, I am in my office now looking. I have an object here, and I know it's a side step here, but when we moved into our house, my wife and I, we love old stuff. And she went to this antique store where they had like a whole bunch of like old, like antique 1930s radios and stuff like that. We have all the knobs and everything. And she stumbled across one radio and had all the knobs on it and everything. And my wife asked the lady there, "How much for that?" And like, "Well, that doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. You turn it on, it just makes a buzzing noise, and it's really useless. Like maybe $30." And she's like, "I'll take it." Why would you want a radio that doesn't work? I don't care. I'm going to take it.
I'm just going to do it. I can see Kathleen having that entire conversation in my head right now.
Yeah, because she ain't stupid. She knows exactly what she was looking at. And so she brought this thing home as a gift for me. And scratched on it, it literally says, like, Los Alamos Nuclear Laboratories, New Mexico. There was a catalog number on there. I think it's like 401. And that pertains to when Oppenheimer was given control of the Manhattan Project, or he was asked like, okay, give us a grocery list of stuff that you need. What is equipment that you need? And that catalog number is scratched onto this thing.
Cool.
And it is actually a DC amplifier that you would use.
That's cool.
To enrich plutonium. Yeah, I want to say you enrich plutonium with it. You would use this to kind of like help power the equipment to measure the output of radiation while enriching plutonium. And so literally, yeah, if you turn it on, it just buzzes, and there's all sorts of fancy knobs on it. It's got like a wooden box. It does nothing other than it was a part of the Manhattan Project.
It has a lot of history, and that is neat in itself.
I had a former student. Dad paid, I think they're like a couple $100, but you can plug it in the bottom of your phone, and it acts as like a amateur Geiger counter. And I brought this into my classroom. Yeah, he plugged this into his phone. It tripped. It was emitting radiation, not a toxic level by any means, but it's a lot more radioactive than what a normal wooden radio would consist of. So
I believe it.
That's kind of how we proved that it was actually there at some extent.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, my wife got that for me as like a housewarming gift, and I'm like, "Oh, honey, you bought me a DC amplifier." Keep in mind, a DC amplifier, you have a whole bunch of them in your cell phone charger, and they are less than a millimeter in size.
Yeah.
But this thing is like an 18-inch tall wooden box. It's maybe a foot wide. It's like 8 inches deep. and it can't even do what your cell phone charger can do. So yeah, anyways, getting back to our good old friend Robert here, I kind of wanted to just really quickly touch on his leadership abilities. And there was a quote here from Victor Weisskopf, former colleague, and I think he was a former student.
Okay.
So you know how we were talking before, like, why does it seem like it's all in who you know?
Mm-hmm.
They get you into fancy positions and whatnot. That's kind of the thing here. But yeah, he recruited a lot of people he knew, but these were also people that were literally the very, very best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And his original plan was just to start off with like a few hundred people, but it exploded instantly into like 6,000 people, including men, women, children. They had to set up schools. This Los Alamos laboratory, Oppenheimer's theory was that we don't want these guys coming in doing a 9 to 5 and then driving 100 miles home to their hotel.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, no, like that's not how a theoretical physicist works. A theoretical physicist works based on I wake up in the middle of the night, I have an idea, I need to get to the lab, I need to run this experiment.
Okay.
And if you think about it, most of these guys were in their 40s, and I can attest to this: when you turn 40, you wake up at 1 o'clock every morning sharp to pee.
Okay.
That's just what, once you hit 40 and you're a dude, yeah, that's what happens. And all these guys would wake up in the middle of the night to pee, and they would have these new ideas pop into their head, and then they could just walk across the road into their lab and start working again. So that was kind of like Robert's plan, was to like, we don't want this to be a 9 to 5 job. We need people to have access to the equipment that they need at any time of day when the idea strikes them. And the only way you could do that is to bring them and their families in.
Okay.
Now, this plays into the demon core issue. If you have a demon core go bad, melts down, and there's only a couple dozen people in the whole lab or in the whole sector or whatever, all right, cool. You just tape that off. You can't go anywhere near that building. You're fine. The issue is that if you have a demon core go bad, and I'm going to get into the details of that, and you've got an entire city around you of men, women, children, and schools and all that kind of stuff, you run the risk of killing thousands of people.
Okay.
So your decision-making process has to be altered when you're dealing with this kind of power, because a simple screw-up killing 12 people is somewhat different than a screw-up killing 6,000 people.
That's okay, that's fair. Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. There's pros and cons to all of this. So this Victor Weisskopf, this is a quote from him. And this really summarizes what it really demonstrates his, like, Oppenheimer's leadership abilities. So it says here, Oppenheimer directed these studies, theoretical and experimental, in the real sense of the words. He has an uncanny speed in grasping the main points of any subject, was a divisive factor. He could acquaint himself with the essential details of every part of the work.
Mm-hmm.
He did not direct from the head of office. He was intellectually and physically present in every decisive step. He was present in the laboratory or in the seminar rooms when a new and effective when a new effect was measured, when a new idea was conceived. It was, hang on here, I'm going to zoom in here because I'm blind. Oh yeah, that's better. It was not that he contributed so many ideas or suggestions. He did so sometimes, but his main influence came from something else. It was his continuous and intense presence which produced a sense of direct participation in all of us. It created that unique atmosphere of enthusiasm and challenge that pervaded the place throughout its time.
Okay.
It's not like Oppenheimer was this guy who... It's funny how at the beginning of the episode I said I was good to refer to him as Robert, and now I'm calling him Oppenheimer all the time.
That's all right.
Yeah, I'm human. It's okay. Yeah, here's the thing. When we look at Robert J. Oppenheimer, we see you see his ability from his mother, looking at the arts and history and the humanities, and then you look at his dad, the analytical, the logical, the critical thinker. He marries to both so much that he knows, like, during all this, because he struggled at first to try to manage all this, but then he quickly realized, like, hey, I'm surrounded by the best of the world minds. Like, let them do their jobs.
Yeah.
And so he would be present, but he would be observant. There was a few times where he would have to make a decision, like, no, we got to do it this way or whatever. But for the most part, his job was to make sure that the brains behind this whole operation were given the opportunity to do what they need to do. And by his presence, because everyone knew, like, hey, this guy's in charge, by his presence at every avenue, because this guy was making his rounds all the time, it would just, like, energize people into, like, hey, let's keep going, let's figure this out. And if you had a question or if you needed help with something, you could go to him, and, you know, Robert would be like, yeah, I'm not in your position, but if I was, I would look at it this way.
Okay.
He would actually draw upon his religious studies, his poetry studies. Like, he would actually draw upon his humanities more than his science.
That makes sense.
So, in other words, like, he had the scientific background to understand how to make this bomb start to finish. He understood that. Like, that wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
But the tools upon which he drew upon to guide or to kind of, like, shove these scientists along, and a lot of these scientists did not like each other. They were very competitive. He had to manage a kind of an unruly group of people. He relied on his humanities more to take care of that part, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. You need some of that in order to work with people and make sure that it's running smoothly. Or else you're just going to get a lot of ticked off scientists.
And that you're going to find yourself having to do everything.
Yeah, that too.
Like, he would be the one that would have to just figure out everything, and he knew that he was not capable of doing that. Like, yeah, he needed these brains. Some of them were professors of his, colleagues, former students. Like, this was kind of a mindset that James E. Webb used in getting man to the moon, is where you need people, whether they like each other or not, whether they like you or not, that's irrelevant. You need talent, and you need a wide array of talent. And yeah, James E. Webb, during the Apollo program, I mean, he would create these committees where, yeah, you would have engineers, you'd have scientists, you would have your physicists, you would have your mathematicians and all that stuff, but he would also have an ethics professor. He would have a history major. He would have an English lit major. He would have such a wide range of people in each one of these committees, because there are things that only an English lit major will understand that a mechanical engineer doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from that standpoint, you need a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and it wasn't to that extent with Oppenheimer's Manhattan Project, but he kind of laid the foundation for that committee-based think tank kind of a thing, and I think that's why it worked so well during all this. Okay, let's jump ahead. We know what happened. Okay, fast forward a couple of years. What was it? It was in... Let me scroll through all my notes here because I have like 17 pages of this stuff. Okay, so eventually on July 16th, 1945, the first ever nuclear bomb was detonated at Trinity near Alamogordo, New Mexico. According to Robert J. Oppenheimer, he said that the Trinity site was named that because his first love, Jean Tatlock, turned Oppenheimer into a huge John Donne fan. He was a poet in the 1600s, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And Trinity was based off of one of his favorite poems. So, yeah, we know we got a bomb detonated. All right, cool. Here's what the Manhattan Project was supposed to produce. They were supposed to produce 4 bombs. The first one was to test at Trinity. One bomb, so the second bomb, was the one that was eventually going to be dropped in Hiroshima on August 6, 1945.
Okay.
So this was barely a month after the first test. So once they saw that first mushroom cloud, they're like, package up the second bomb, get it over to the Philippines, because we're a go here.
Yeah.
This bomb was named Little Boy. And I'm going to go into why it was called Little Boy. And I'm going to get into the second bomb here, or the third bomb, I should say. There would be one bomb that would eventually be dropped in Nagasaki on August 9th, 1945, in the event the Hiroshima bombing didn't persuade the Japanese Empire to surrender.
Okay.
This bomb was named Fat Man. And if you Google these two bombs, Little Boy and Fat Man, you will see like Little Boy is a long, skinnier type of like looks like a traditional 2,000-pound bomb that was dropped all over Europe. It's I don't want to say unassuming because it's a freaking nuclear bomb, but yeah, there's a reason behind that. The one that was dropped in Nagasaki, because as we discussed earlier, the emperor's surrender was recorded and then hid by an overzealous colonel. All right, no response. We're dropping one on Nagasaki. So that was 3 days later, and that was because they didn't surrender. That one was named Fat Man.
Okay.
So that we kind of we can visualize we get, because after that, Japan surrendered. We moved on. But they were going to create a fourth bomb. This would have been the quote-unquote third bomb that would be dropped on Tokyo if after Fat Man didn't work. If Fat Man did not cause them to surrender, then they were fully prepared. The Americans were fully prepared to drop a freaking nuke on Tokyo. And the core for that bomb was named Rufus. So you have Little Boy, Fat Man, and Rufus.
Rufus, okay.
Yeah, this would eventually become known as the Demon Core. Okay, here I'm going to be spitting out a whole bunch of sciencey stuff here.
Cool.
All right, how does a nuclear bomb work? You drop it, it goes boom, makes a mushroom cloud. Cool. It sounds simple enough, but when we think of explosives, we think of like, okay, if you're going to create a bomb, right, how much TNT can we stuff in a canister and drop it and blow it up? How much nitroglycerin can we pack into an area and or in a container and hit it really hard and then watch it blow up? Those are chemical explosions. Those are percussive explosions. Like, they detonate and then they don't release a lot of heat per se, but they produce a massive shock wave that you can only get with a chemical weapon like nitroglycerin or whatever. Okay. A nuclear bomb works very, very differently. A nuclear bomb, if you detonated a nuclear bomb in space and you were standing right next to it, you would feel nothing.
Okay.
You would get blasted with a lot of like neutron-based radiation and the fallout and all that crap from the radiation or from the core being detonated. But like, if we were to have like, remember that stupid movie Armageddon?
Yes.
That like the plot line is cool. Like, I get it.
I mean, it's
the acting wasn't half bad.
Entertaining movie. It's entertaining. But scientifically speaking, no. But it's entertaining.
Scientifically, that's an episode of our show in its own right. If you have a comet coming towards Earth and you go detonate a nuclear bomb on it, it will do absolutely nothing. Because a nuclear bomb only does one thing, and that is produce heat. It doesn't produce a shockwave other than what the explosives inside do to detonate the bomb, but it's not going to blow apart a comet. If you were to drop a nuclear bomb on the moon and detonate it, you would see it from Earth as a tiny little point of light that would last for maybe a couple of minutes and then go away.
Okay.
Now, if you were inside that tiny little point of light, you are going to experience like 5 million degrees of heat.
Whoa.
That's the thing. A nuclear bomb isn't percussive. A nuclear bomb, when it detonates, our atmosphere is made with all sorts of flammable stuff like oxygen and, well, actually, it's pretty much oxygen. Nitrogen doesn't do anything. But like, when you detonate a nuclear bomb on Earth, the air literally ignites in fire. And then it, like, whenever you have anything that ignites, that energy has to escape somewhere. And that's where we get that, those 300-400 mile an hour winds that just blow every building apart. It's because you have a heat source that is hotter than the surface of the sun. It's actually more in the realm of the core of the sun, and it is just incinerating everything, and that's where you get the explosion from. In a vacuum, nothing happens.
Okay.
Other than a lot of light.
Okay.
And radiation. So,
got it.
Okay, cool. Here we go. Let's get into some nuclear chemistry here. So, you are comprised of atoms. I'm comprised of atoms. The tree outside my window is comprised of atoms. Everybody that I know and love and care about, and everything that I love and care about, are all comprised of atoms.
Right.
All right. What are atoms made out of? Atoms are, for the most part, made of two things. I'm being very general here. I know we've got that listener that has read books in quantum mechanics where you know about tauons and gluons and quarks and up quarks and down quarks and leptons. Okay, that I get that. That's a whole nother discussion.
That is a very long discussion.
Yeah, that is what 8 years of college will get you to. But for the basic parts of our listeners here, in the nucleus of every atom, because you have a nucleus and then you have the electrons that surround it. The nucleus of every atom is comprised of protons.
Okay.
Okay. Around now that ball of protons is a shell of electrons. For the purposes of nuclear chemistry, and this is the reason why I like nuclear chemistry a little more than just like physical chemistry or normal chemistry, is in normal chemistry, you really focus not so much on what the proton or the nucleus is all about. You're more focused on the electrons. Where do they sit? What are their energy levels like? Because that's how an atom reacts to another atom to make a molecule.
Okay.
So yeah, like when you touch something, Kara, you are not actually touching it.
Yeah.
You can't. You physically, you are not touching anything beyond the electrons that sit outside that atom.
Okay.
You do not possess enough strength or energy. You need something like a particle accelerator to make that happen.
Got
right?
It.
So like when you are feeling something, when you touch your desk or your mouse or the microphone or whatever, what you are actually feeling is, and that sounds really weird because I'm going to say the word electrons, but that's actually what you're mostly in contact with. But all those atoms are also vibrating, and they're vibrating based upon their temperature. And so, yeah, whenever you touch something, you're not integrating with the nucleus, because the nucleus is like 99.99999% of the weight of the atom. So if you were to pick up your mouse, like, yeah, that's all the protons that give it the weight. There's almost an infinite number of electrons in every little particle of plastic in the mouse, but they are, yeah, they're useless. So, like, if Earth was the size, like, if you were to say, hey, a proton is the size of Earth, a speck of dust in space would be the size of the electron.
Okay.
Okay, so when you take normal chemistry, that's all you're dealing with is, okay, how did these elements share and move and take electrons? Nuclear chemistry focuses solely on the proton. We could care less about the electrons, okay?
Okay.
So, every atom has a certain amount of protons in them, and that's how we identify it, right? So, a hydrogen atom has 1 proton. A helium atom has 2 protons. Lithium has 3, and so on and so on. Some of the most famous elements, and I know you love these elements. You cannot live without them.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like, literally, you do not. You cannot, like, you are addicted to these more than heroin, cocaine, morphine combined. Yeah, you must have these atoms. So, like, some of the most popular atoms that we living beings like: hydrogen with 1 proton, carbon with 6 protons, nitrogen, which has 7 protons, oxygen with 8 protons, and literally those things make up organic chemistry.
There you go.
That's like all life on Earth has to have those elements in them. I don't know how much you weigh, but I know how much I weigh. It's 260 pounds. I have 260 pounds of protons in my body. That's like 99.999999% of my weight. So the protons provide the weight and the mass of the element that is inside of me. So,
okay.
All right, cool. Let's take a different look at things here. You've messed with magnets before, right?
Of course. Who has not?
Yeah, like everybody has. Like, yeah. And you notice how like all magnets have a positive side and then a negative side,
right?
And what happens if you have the negative side come close to the positive side of the magnet?
They attract each other.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Opposites attract, right?
Yep.
Cool. And then what happens when you turn those magnets around and now they are, or you turn one of them around and now you have like say 2 positive sides or 2 negative sides facing each other, then what happens?
And they force away from each other. Force pushes them away from each other.
Yes. In fact, I'm actually going to make a little doll rod thing for your classroom.
Cool.
Where I'm going to get some quarter-size neodymium magnets.
Okay.
Where like you can drop one magnet in there and say like you have the negative side facing up.
All right.
But then you drop the next magnet in there. It can't flip over. So what will happen is that it will now, since it's 2 of the same forces, they're going to repel each other. And then you could take the next magnet and flip it and then flip it. So you can have like a stack of like 10 magnets floating.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, and you can push down on it and it acts like a spring.
That's neat.
Yeah.
I like it. And I'm sure the students are going to love it to the point where we are going to have to confiscate it and give them permission to use it.
And not to mention, too, neodymium magnets are kind of powerful, so if you flip them around, they can pinch your finger. I mean, they won't cause any damage or anything, but I've seen some of these magnets that are like 4 inches thick of these neodymiums, and then they literally have to put them like 4 or 5 feet apart from each other, and then they have to use a 2x4 a couple feet away, and they have to like nudge it forward. And then once they get within, say, a couple of feet, they slam together and they explode.
Oh.
Yeah, like it's with like hundreds of pounds of pressure.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah. That's neodymium magnets. They are not to be messed with, but small ones like the size of quarters, it'll be fine. Like if they flip around and they stick to each other, then you've got to like kind of really work to pull them apart. But anyways, magnets. Okay. So if the center of an atom is comprised of protons, which are all positive, and you've got the electrons that are kind of floating around, and we'll pretend they're like a cloud, right? Okay. We can't really count them because they're so dang small. But that's normal chemistry. We're talking about nuclear chemistry here, so let's just focus on the proton. I thought that if 2 positively charged objects came close to each other, what would happen?
Say that again.
If you had 2 positively charged objects, like say like you just have the positive end of a magnet coming across another positive end of a magnet.
Okay.
What will they do?
Won't they create some sort of charge? Am I wrong?
No. They would repel each other.
They repel each other. Got it. I sound
so really cool. Like
I'm embarrassed.
No, it's okay. It's we're talking about the basics of nuclear chemistry here. It's quite okay. How is that possible? How is it that you and me and everybody else we're just sacks of protons stuck together? Why is it like I thought if a positively charged particle comes with in contact with another positively charged particle, it should separate.
Mm-hmm.
So if all our nucleuses of every atom in our body are made of positively charged particles, shouldn't we just evaporate? Like just poof, turn into hydrogen?
In theory.
So what's keeping us together? Like what's keeping that nucleus together? This is where it gets weird.
Okay.
This is where we get into quantum mechanics. This is
Yeah.
where we get into like everything that Oppenheimer studied, everything that Einstein and Enrique Fermi and Lawrence and Dirac, like this is what was being studied from 1900 to 1940.
Okay.
It's like why are not the nucleuses of all atoms just disintegrating, like pushing away from each other?
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Alrighty. The answer is the four forces.
Four forces.
I know, and it sounds like something you would see in a Marvel comic.
That or a little tidbit from a tongue twister song, but go on. I'm gonna make a tongue twister out of that.
Yeah, I was thinking of the four forces in terms of like infinity stones.
Yeah. I could totally see that.
Where the infinity stones only existed as one stone at the beginning of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the writers for the Marvel Infinity Wars maybe have read something about this.
What?
Oh, I know.
Oh my god.
So, the four forces. Basically, if you were to take the four forces and compact it all together, you would create a thing that would exist at time zero of the Big Bang. After the Big Bang, it immediately created the four forces. What are these four forces? You have the strong force.
Mm-hmm.
You have the weak force.
Okay.
Okay. You have the electromagnetic force, and then you have the gravitational force.
Okay.
Now, you and me and every other living thing on Earth, we have all experienced the weak force, the electromagnetic force, the gravitational force. If you pick up your mouse and drop it, that's the gravitational force. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
All right. If you go stick a fork inside of an electrical socket, you've just experienced the electromagnetic force.
Okay. Yep.
If you go and stare at the sun and the photons that come out of the sun burn a hole in your eyeballs, that's the weak force.
Okay.
What the hell's a strong force? That's the force. So let me backtrack a little bit. Gravitational forces reach from one end to the universe to the other end. They're a very long reaching out effect. You may not realize it, but the gravitational pull of your body is also pulling on the edge of the universe that is expanding.
Okay.
And it's slowing it down by an impossibly small amount of gravitational pull, but it reaches really, really far. The electromagnetic force behaves more on the range of an atom vibration, right? It's a very, very small distance, but it's basically radio waves.
Okay. All right. I'm with you.
Okay, and the weak force is basically light. It has a very, very, very long reaching effect when like when you go stand outside and you get a sunburn, that's the weak force burning you. So, all right, cool. These three forces they reach out really, really far, and they're what we engage with on a daily basis. The strong force, now this is something else. The strong force does not reach out any further past than maybe a proton. The strong force is realistically what binds protons to protons.
Okay.
So we are talking at the subnucleus level of an atom. Okay. Thankfully, it has a short reach. It's really like it's minuscule. You cannot, like, when you hit something that is really, really hard, you are pounding against that strong force.
Okay.
Okay. I haven't lost you yet?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. That's what holds the nucleuses of atoms together, is this strong force. It's like a glue. And how strong is it? Like when you've got two protons stuck together, like say like a helium atom consists of two protons and two electrons, but we don't care about the electrons. Those two protons are stuck together because they're within the reach of the strong force. Okay, how much effort, like if you had a tiny little chisel that was impossibly strong and you needed to split those two atoms apart, how much force would you need to split those two apart?
Right.
You would need 1,039 tons of force to split those two apart.
Jeez. That's a lot.
That's called a Planck tension.
Okay.
We have a Planck distance, we have the Planck constant. Basically, Max Planck was a scientist who really looked at the quantum side of things in terms of like, hey, how does gravity behave between between the distances of two protons in an atom? What kind of distances are we looking at? What would it look like at the quantum level? And so he came up with these values. And so like if I were to somehow launch something at a if I was somehow launch something like a bullet at say a helium atom and I split those two protons apart,
okay,
I have just released 1,039 tons of energy.
Got it.
That's where does that go?
Yeah.
Like you just don't like separate it and move on. No, it's like a horribly bad divorce. I mean, there's alimony, there's judges involved, there's lawyers, there is all sorts of crap going on there that is just a giant poo show. And that's just between two protons.
Okay.
Let's go back to the periodic table here, right? We've already talked about hydrogen and nitrogen and carbon and oxygen and all that kind of stuff. As you get further down the periodic table, we start packing on more and more protons until we start getting into, say, like uranium or plutonium. Uranium has 92 protons, and plutonium, I think, has 94 protons. But when we start getting into these more massive, heavier elements, we see the introduction of another particle called the neutron.
All right.
And neutrons are just kind of like fat, lazy particles. They don't react to anything. They don't do anything. Cool. Literally, they just make stuff heavier. And they only reside in the nucleus of an atom.
Okay.
And so when you look at the nucleus of an atom, say like uranium, which has 92 protons, the most stable form of it will also have 146 neutrons mixed in with it.
Okay.
And they just chill out there. They just hang out there. They're like, hey, I'm taking up residence with uranium 92, and I'm bringing 146 of my friends with me, and we're along for the ride. And so yeah, we've now created what is known as an isotope.
Okay.
So an isotope, you can have uranium 92 with 146 neutrons. That's one isotope of uranium. You can have another isotope of uranium where you have 92 protons and maybe 145 neutrons, or 147 or whatever. Those are all different isotopes. And now we are getting into the heart of nuclear chemistry here, because imagine for a minute that all of these neutrons and protons, they're being bound together by, like, each connection has 1,039 tons of energy.
Okay.
Times that by 238.
Oh, hurts my brain.
1039. That's the Planck tension times 238. So each one of these atoms has at least a net value of 247,282 tons of stored energy.
Okay.
That's just one atom.
Oh,
What happens now if you have hundreds of trillions of billions of these things
yeah.
in the form of a ball the size of a grapefruit?
That's terrifying. That's terrifying.
Yeah, that's a lot of stored energy, and that's kind of like the very most rudimentary take on Einstein's theory of relativity of E
Okay.
equals mc squared,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
mass times the speed of light constant squared equals the energy output. So the more mass you have, the more energy you have, because it's all stored up inside of this thing. And so yeah, I mean, my calculator on my computer can't even calculate the amount of energy. I mean, I can't even times it by, say, 100,000,000. So that's a million, 100 million, billion, trillion, quadrillion. So I'm up here to the point where it is literally
It's
like
maxed out.
less than a gram. We are now looking at 2.47 times 10 to the 20 power
Okay.
of tons of energy stored in this ball, and that's just a gram.
It's gross.
We're not even we haven't even got into the fact that this thing weighs 13 pounds. You starting to get the idea here? Like, if there's a way that you could unlock that, holy God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's literally what the Manhattan Project was supposed to do. That's all they were supposed to do, is just figure out a way to unleash that energy. And there's two ways that you can do that. The first way is you can do what is known as like the bullet assembly method. So you can take uranium 235
Uh-huh.
and you form it in a sphere, cut it in half, separate that sphere, or they're not hemispheres, but you separate those two by a distance. And then off to one side, like in a giant, really, really, really strong tube, you have a very powerful explosive source. When that thing detonates, a conventional explosion, it forces that hemisphere into the other hemisphere, and it forms a critical mass. They hit so hard that what happens is that one atom will release one of those neutrons, and it will hit another atom with such energy that it will split that atom.
Okay.
Okay, so now you've released two other halves. They're now two completely different elements, right? Because they're now split in half.
Right.
But in the process of splitting those two in half, and now we've got 1,039 tons of energy per proton now being released. That energy will then just throw out neutrons, which will then hit more atoms, and it's exponential.
Okay.
And so within a millisecond of detonating this is what Little Boy was. This was the bullet assembly method. And this was really, really hard because you had to get a very specific type of uranium 235, and it was really tricky to make. And this was ultimately what was dropped on Hiroshima. Yeah, within a millisecond, you have just released hundreds of millions of tons of dynamite all at once.
Okay. Cool.
That's called the bullet assembly method. That was the first bomb that they worked on, which is funny because that was like the most difficult one to make. Maybe because they knew that it would take such a long time.
Yeah.
That, like, maybe that's why they started first on it. The second type of bomb you can make is called an implosion method. So here you use plutonium. And again, you have to use a very, very specific type of plutonium. And also keep in mind, plutonium doesn't naturally exist. Uranium does, plutonium doesn't. So you take uranium and then you just blast it with protons in a particle accelerator. They called them a cyclotron back then. You are just blasting it with unbelievable amounts of protons. And eventually, if you have enough energy, you will convert this over into plutonium.
Got it.
Which has its own very unstable nature unto its own right. And so, like, you could have plutonium 239 and 240 and 241. So, yeah, it's really, really difficult to make plutonium, but they were making it back then. And this is what was used in the implosion method. So, you take the same sphere.
Okay.
And you basically create what is known as explosive lenses. And this is the reason why the Fat Man bomb was shaped the way it was, because it was more of a sphere. And this sphere comprised of explosives that had to be manufactured perfectly. There could be no air bubbles, there could be nothing. It was a solid state explosive, kind of made in these cone like shapes. And then each one of these things, each one of these cones, they all had to detonate at the same time.
Okay.
So it's really weird. It looks like a ball with like hundreds of wires coming out of it. And basically, those wires were all calculated to detonate within a billionth of a second of accuracy at one time. And so what that does is that will compress that ball of plutonium to start that reaction where you have one atom that splits another one into two, and then two into four, and then four into eight, and then 16, 32, releasing all that energy at once.
Okay.
Like literally within a millisecond. Actually, it's a nanosecond if I remember correctly. And like if you were standing next to something like that, if like one of these bombs detonated right next to you, it would happen so fast that it's kind of like the guys that died in the Titan implosion. It's less than a millisecond. Your body requires 150 milliseconds to receive the pain and to like understand that it's pain, and then for the brain to do something about it, it needs 150 milliseconds. So you would literally, it releases so much energy that if you were standing next to it, it would, you would literally be turned into gaseous carbon, and every other element in your body will be in the atmosphere.
Jeez Louise.
You wouldn't hear anything, you wouldn't see anything, you wouldn't feel anything. So, like when these bombs were dropped over those two cities, they actually detonated at about 500 to 700 feet above the surface of the city, because that would have maximized the range of the explosion. It would also have caused the biggest radius, because if you're lucky, you would be right under it and you'd be gone. If you were, say, like a mile out, you're sustaining third-degree burns over most of your body.
Okay.
That's why these things are so horrific, and it just produces millions of degrees of heat all at once. So that's what the Manhattan Project was trying to unlock. So what the heck's up with this demon core? Because I think I've got like maybe 8 minutes left to explain it. I'm probably going to take longer.
Okay. Go.
The demon core was supposed to be the third bomb to drop on Tokyo, or the fourth bomb that the Manhattan Project was supposed to deliver. In order, if you just had a ball of uranium or a ball of plutonium and you just sit it on your desk, all it's going to do is just chill out and give you some radiation poisoning, make you feel sick. And if you have it on your desk long enough, a period of time, you'll eventually get like cancer and stuff like that.
Okay.
Right? Because it's emitting these neutrons. It's just kicking them out, because it's not like there's not enough radius in the strong force to retain all these neutrons, so they're just getting kicked out. So what happens is that eventually, over the course of thousands of years, those neutrons would leave, and then you would actually see that ball get smaller and smaller and smaller. All right, cool. That's just nuclear decay. Now, what you have to do is you've got to prep these cores in a very, very specific way. You've got to energize them in a way that gets them really, really pissed off, so that it's really easy to detonate it. Right? You can take an iron sphere and put all the explosives in the world on it and blow it up and implode it. It won't do anything.
Okay.
Because there's not enough stored energy in there. But with like uranium and plutonium, that's a different story. So what do you got to do? Well, you've got to take the neutrons that are just flying out of the sphere left and right, and you got to bounce them back into that core. And you've got to do this very carefully, because if you do it too much, it will turn into like Chernobyl. It will start fissioning, it will start breaking itself down. It will release an ungodly amount of toxic levels of radiation, and it will kill everybody in the region. Like it would just be so radioactive that you would have to tape off the area for thousands of years.
Okay.
How do you set this up? So let's introduce our good friend Harry Doglian. Doglian, he's got a 4-year degree in the sciences, I think from Indiana or something like that. And then he was brought aboard to work on the criticality tests of the Manhattan Project. So he actually really, really helped out a lot with creating the first 2 bombs, and actually the first 3 bombs, and then he did experiments on what would be known as Rufus, or the Demon Core. Here in August 21st, 1945. So we're talking like a week after World War II ended.
All right.
Doglian was messing around with this last core, and he needed to prep it. He needed to bounce enough neutrons into this core to bring it to criticality, meaning bounce it back in, it loses a little bit of mass, but it gets angry. It has like a lot of tension.
Okay.
So that if you were to strike it hard enough or implode it hard enough, it would be really, really easy to turn into a nuclear bomb.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like you've got to bounce enough of these neutrons back into it to make it unstable.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, and if you bounce too many of them back, then it becomes really unstable, and then you have a nuclear reactor on your hands with no way of cooling it down, and kind of like Chernobyl, it will melt down, and you've got radiation just flying out everywhere. The way that you can bounce these neutrons back into it is by using tungsten bricks. I can't imagine how in the world they found that much tungsten. It is a fairly rare metal, and it is insanely hard. Like, you can only cut it with diamonds, but what he was doing is he had his plutonium sphere on this table, and then he was slowly adding these tungsten bricks around it.
Okay.
And as he kind of created this little brick shelf around it, it started to bounce back more and more of these neutrons, and it was bouncing back, hitting kind of like, okay, like let's say you wrap yourself up in a blanket. What will eventually happen?
You'll get warm.
Exactly. Okay, so let's wrap you up in another blanket. What's going to happen?
You'll get warm faster?
Yeah, and warmer, to the point where you're like, this sucks, and you have to get out.
Right.
And if you don't, in theory, yeah, you can actually die from it.
Okay.
That's kind of what we're doing here, is we're taking this uranium sphere, and we're like, or this plutonium sphere, and be like, okay, we're just going to keep wrapping you in blankets until the point where you just want to get so pissed off, you want to just like get out.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So here's where it kind of went wrong. He noticed that he had too much bricks around there, and in the process of trying to remove one of these tungsten bricks, it slipped out of his hand and it fell straight onto this core. When it did that, it occluded everything. So now basically like 90% of this core was now completely covered in tungsten, and all these electrons were, or not electrons, but all these neutrons were now being bounced back into the core, and the room literally lit up with a blue light, and like everything was glowing blue because we're at criticality.
Okay.
This thing is now melting down. It is basically like if you went to Chernobyl and you pulled out one of those rods of uranium that is currently fissioning, you pull it out into the open air, it will very quickly melt down, and it won't stop, and it will release an unbelievable amount of heat and radiation and all sorts of crap, and then whatever it touches, it will burn. That will burn and then release even more radiation. That's that's a problem when you're working in a facility with men, women, children, schools, doctor's office, grocery stores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a problem.
So the only thing he could do was reach in there, grab that brick, and then just throw it out. In the process of doing that, he received like 1,000 times more radiation dose than anybody in Chernobyl.
Jeez.
So I think it's 510 Rontgen, or 5.1 sieverts. So if you receive, I think if you receive like 2.5 to 3 sieverts, you'll be okay. You'll be really, really sick. You'll lose all your hair, and then you'll probably die like 20 years later of cancer.
Okay.
But you will survive that exposure. He received twice that.
Wow.
And you can see pictures of his hand, like the skin of his right hand is just like falling off. They took him to the hospital. They had no idea what to do because, let's face it, this had never happened before. They obviously tried to treat him, but yeah, listen to the nuclear power plant failure episode, because yeah, radiation just destroys the nucleuses of the cells in your body. And like, yeah, your intestines shut down, your liver shuts down, it destroys your bone marrow, so you can't produce any more blood cells. Since your liver shut down, you can't filter out those blood cells, the ones that die. You can't produce white blood cells, so your immune system is gone, and you literally start rotting from the inside out. And so, after about 3 to 4 weeks of this, he died 25 days later.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, he fell into a coma and then he died.
Jeez.
Yeah, he was the kind of guy that was like, hey, you need to keep me alive as long as you can.
Yeah.
So you can keep studying what the effects are doing to me as I'm living. Because we are now in uncharted territory. This had never happened before. And so, yeah, he was asking the medical people, like, hey, keep me alive. Don't give me a toxic dose of morphine. Like, we need to keep me alive. And so you can study everything, because he's like, this is the future. This will not go away. We're going to keep dabbling with this over and over and over again.
Okay.
I would not have the wherewithal to do that.
Nope, me neither.
Yeah. I'd be like, crap, I'm going to die. Give me that big old giant jar of morphine. I'm going to take care of it now.
Yeah, that's craziness.
Yeah, it's wild. And we haven't even got to the crazy part yet. We need to get to Lewis Slaughton. Lewis Slaughton, he was a laboratory assistant. He actually was the guy who would actually assemble these nuclear bombs. So not only did he deal with the criticality testing and stuff like that, he was a bit, I don't want to say he was cocky, but he was definitely the kind of guy that'd be like, hey, I kind of know what I'm doing, and I'm good at it. Yeah, he kind of had this attitude, but after Doglian's death, they were like, okay, we're no longer going to do this brick method. Instead, and I think this was Slaughton's idea, it's like, okay, instead of doing the brick method, let's create a hollow sphere of beryllium. We're going to cut that sphere in half, and then we're going to put our, Rufus, we're going to put Rufus in the middle of it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set up a series of shims, and then we're going to take the other half of that beryllium, basically it's like a bowl, and then we're going to put it over it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a series of screwdrivers and shims, and as we tilt that flathead screwdriver, it's going to raise and lower that shield, so it makes it a little bit more controllable.
Okay.
So yeah, like you literally have to put your thumb inside this hole in the top, which is just getting blasted with radiation, but they didn't realize that back then. And so he was very gently tilting this, and he was opening and closing the gap between the two beryllium mirrors kind of like how like the tungsten would reflect everything back into, the beryllium worked better because it would release like gamma ray radiation and stuff like that. Stuff you don't want, it would only bounce back the neutrons. And so, yeah, he was slowly opening and closing and looking at the Geiger counters, looking at the energy output and everything. And so, yeah, that's how he was trying to test this core and get it to criticality without it going super critical and killing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
All right, something happened. So on May 21st, 1946, there were 7 people in the room. Before with Doglian, it was just him and one other guy. He was a guard.
Okay.
Here, the protocol was like, first, that we're going to switch over to this beryllium bull method, and we're going to have more people in the room because that's going to make it safer. I don't know. To me, it sounds like more of like a hazard. At around 3:20 p.m., somehow, somewhere, the screwdriver slipped. Okay, cool. The shims would keep it from coming in contact, right? Well, wrong. He was the guy who said, let's set up shims to make it safe, but he kind of got a little cocky about it, and he's like, I don't need the shims. I've done this a million times. Just give me a screwdriver. I got this. I can do the test on this with no problem.
Okay.
Well, once that screwdriver slipped, that beryllium shield fell. Instant criticality.
Dang.
And it went super critical within like a fraction of a second.
Man.
We are now in the realm of like we're now in a situation that is much, much worse than what Doglian was experiencing, because Doglian he still had all the tungsten carbide bricks that were kind of shielding him and stuff like that. Here he was just Slotin was just relying on the beryllium reflector. The room immediately erupted in blue light. It was interesting because Slotin, he immediately told everybody to stay put, don't move. And the only thing he could do was now physically touch this beryllium reflector. He had to physically grab it, pick it up, which weighed like 14, 15 pounds, and then throw it across the room. But in doing so, his hand now became fully exposed to everything that this core was putting out. And you know how Doglian received like 5.1 sieverts? Remember, 2.5 to 3.0 is salvageable. You're going to be really, really sick. But anything beyond that, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Slotin experienced over 10 sieverts.
Jeez.
And this is what's crazy about this guy. Like, this is like when we look at this core, like after this event, it was considered the demon core. In fact, the process of testing this core using this method, Enrique Fermi told Slotin, like, hey, if you keep tickling the dragon's tail, that's literally what they called this process, was tickling the dragon's tail. You keep doing it the way you're doing, and you will be dead within the year. And he was 100% right.
That's crazy.
So yeah, like he flung this thing off, and he instantly knew. Now Doglian, he wasn't even a master's student. He was still studying. He just had a 4-year degree. Okay, Slotin was like a legit professor. He knew exactly what had just happened, and so he told everybody in the room, take off anything that is metal, wedding ring, belt buckle, shoes, whatever, bracelets, watches, take off everything that is metal, because metal is going to absorb this. And then he threw them all a piece of chalk and said, draw a circle around where you're standing. Don't move, but just like draw a circle.
Okay.
And then he told him to get the hell out of there. And so what he did was he measured the distance from the core, which is now back to a normal state. He measured the distance of the core based upon the measurements of the radiation output. Slotin, he had a guy standing right behind him, watching him, almost like a spotter. He had a guy right behind him watching to make sure that everything was going okay. He got hit with a lot of radiation, but Slotin shielded him of that. And he actually, I think he died of a heart attack like 20 years later, so we don't know if that was radiation related. But a lot of the people in that room, they survived, but a lot of them then eventually died from like leukemia and cancers like 20, 30 years later. So Slotin, he did the math, and he's like, okay, cool. Everybody in this room should be okay, but me.
Man. That takes guts.
Yeah, and he was able to figure it out that he's like, I'm a dead guy. I'm not going to survive this. He goes down on record as being one of the most highly radioactive infected persons in human history. He's like the top 3. And we're talking, so you know how Dogland lasted for 25 days? Slaughton, he did the same thing. He's like, you got to keep me alive. You need to study this because obviously we can't do clinical trials on, toxic levels of radiation poisoning.
Right.
And so he asked him to keep him alive as long as possible, doing blood transfusions. They were injecting these giant needles into his heart and the pericardial sac to try to pull out as much fluid as possible to keep his heart beating. He didn't want any morphine because he wanted to have them do tests on him to understand the degree of pain that somebody's experiencing on this. He may have been cocky, but I'm sorry, that takes cojones that I don't have. Like I would have been once I knew what was going to happen to me. I would have been like, I would just drank a whole bottle of morphine. Be like, I'm out, guys. I'll catch you later on. So yeah, he agonizing sequence of radiation-induced traumas, including severe diarrhea, reduced urine output, swollen hands, arrhythmia, massive blisters on his hands and forearms, intestinal paralysis, gangrene. He had internal radiation burns. So like his internal organs received radiation burns, not just his skin. So yeah, which one medical expert described as a 3-dimensional sunburn. Jeez. By the 7th day, he was experiencing periods of mental confusion. His lips turned blue and he was put on an oxygen tent. He ultimately experienced a total disintegration of bodily function and slipped into a coma. Slaughton died 11 a.m. on the 30th of May in the prison with his parents. He was buried in Charest Zedek Cemetery in Winnipeg on the 2nd of June, 1946. And after that's the Demon Core. Afterwards, they're like, okay, we are done screwing around with this thing.
Yeah, I can't blame them. I would be done.
Like, we are so done with this. And so, like, okay, typical dumpster fire fashion, like, what came of this? What happened to this? What was learned from it? Basically, they decided, you know what? The next time we do these criticality experiments, let's do it remotely. Why can't we just set this up in one building and then have us be in another building and we just use long rods and crap?
Yeah.
Why don't we try lining the facility with lead so that if it does go bad, we can contain it?
Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff like that, but the big thing was that I think the government kind of had enough of this demon core and they melted it down. They just threw it in a furnace, melted it down, and they formed like 3 other smaller cores, which if they did hit criticality, it wouldn't be as bad. And you can still get some pretty awesome explosions out of a golf ball sized plutonium versus a grapefruit sized ball of plutonium.
Okay.
And so that's where they learned, like, hey, if we take one of these cores and we throw it in a howitzer and we launch it out there 15 miles and detonate it, well, now you have yourself a tactical nuke. That is exactly what Russia is doing, or did, is they stored what was known as tactical nukes in Belarus. So these are very, very small nuclear bombs that you could put in a howitzer or even a mortar. And instead of having like a 20, 30 foot blast radius, you can now have like a half a mile blast radius.
Okay.
And so that is literally what a tactical nuke is. It's a smaller bomb that you can put in a conventional cannon and detonate and cause a lot of damage, but not quite like leveling an entire city and killing 200,000 people at once.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's very humane of
that's
Russia to do that.
Nice of them.
And so, yes, that is Oppie's Demon Core. I threw a lot of science out there.
There's a lot.
A lot of history.
There's a lot.
You're still awake, although
I'm still here.
I did count like 5 yawns.
To be fair, if it makes you feel better, I woke up just very, very tired today. I don't know why.
I guess my my inner Neil deGrasse Tyson is not quite there. I'll keep working on it.
It's not you, I promise. It's not you. Truly, I don't know what's wrong with me.
No, you're fine. I understand. It's yeah, you're not choosing to take the summer off like a normal teacher would.
That's true. I'm not. Truly, I'm not.
But yeah, no, this is our special episode. I'm hoping when you listen to this and you go watch that movie again. I haven't seen it yet because it's still like 2 weeks out. But
yeah,
I'm really curious to see what Christopher Nolan does, how he's going to approach it. Knowing Christopher Nolan, he's going to do something with time. He's going to have like multiple different plot lines and different time frames and stuff like that. He's very, very character driven.
I'm very excited.
Yeah,
I'm so excited. My husband and I, we both already have tickets.
Wow.
We're gonna see it opening day.
Yeah, well, actually, that's my the 21st is my. That's when it comes out on the 21st. That's actually my last day. So.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
At my current employment, so I'm going to be.
You and the fam should go see it for.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, do it.
As a parting
gift.
Gift. A reward for that. So yeah. Somewhere we should have our second episode of the Valley of the Kings fire coming out. I'm working on the Hubble telescope disaster dumpster fire.
Got it going. I swear it's not you. I have to take a nap.
And I even tried to go so fast too, to just be like, "Hey, let's not just droll on." I don't think I drolled on.
No, you were fine. You were totally fine. You're good. I promise. I have to get more. I got to do something. More caffeine. We'll figure
what
this
you
out.
need is some Pixie Sticks and Mountain Dew.
Oh God, no! I can't do that anymore. I left that life like 15 years ago.
Of just consuming commercial grade meth.
Yeah. It's so bad for you.
Oh man. I mean, it's just a spleen. You don't need it.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
So yeah, we'll leave it there. I'll try to get this out here by the 21st.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Hit us up on the old Instagram. Send us an email.
Please do.
daysdumpsterfire@gmail.com.
Looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, if you have personal experience dealing with demon cores,
cool,
and you're still alive to tell the tale, I am
all ears.
Yeah,
or eyes.
I want to hear from you.
Yeah,
so
that'd be good.
Shout out to our guy in Britain.
Shouts to the homie in the UK.
We got that one guy in Britain who's just, it's some girl. It's like one of our family members who are just using a VPN.
Yeah,
and. It's just pinging in Britain.
Just the same city in Britain.
Yeah, it's just your mom. Your mom's just logged into a VPN.
She has no idea what she's doing.
I want to put it past that.
Still, just in case you are the human in Britain. Shouts.
Yeah, and if not, hey, Kara's mom.
Hey,
Mom. Appreciate you.
Hey, Mom.
Alrighty, guys. Y'all take it easy.
See ya.
Yeah, keep it a hot mess.
Bye.